The Ruby Franke documentary is so disturbing.
Ruby was effectively America's mom.
My bedroom was taken away for 7 months.
I don't think our viewers know that.
I helped him clean blood off the walls.
One day he could do 6 favors of taking me to the nearest police station.
And she started to share with me that the 2 younger children were demonically possessed.
Hello you gorgeous donuts. Today we're going to be covering the Ruby Franke documentary, which has just dropped on Disney+. For people who don't know who Ruby Franke is, she was one of the most, if not the most popular mother vlogger on YouTube. She had a YouTube channel called 8 Passengers where her and her husband would document their lives with their 6 children, and they rose to such fame that even YouTube would post about her on Mother's Day. Like, she was the poster mother for YouTube to promote. However, in 2023, Ruby Franke actually got arrested for child abuse, and this became a huge scandal across YouTube and genuinely shocked the landscape of social media. How could a woman who portrayed herself to be the perfect mother be so evil? This is what everybody was wondering. Well, Disney Plus have gained access to over 1,000 hours of unaired archived footage from the family. This is a 3-part documentary where they show the unaired footage, and they have the dad of 8 Passengers, Ruby Franke's ex-husband, and her 2 eldest children exposing all of the secrets of what was actually going on. And genuinely, this documentary made me cry. It's so upsetting, and we're going to cover every single episode and go through everything in this doc. We're going to cover how they rose, we're going to cover the start of their demise, we're going to cover how Ruby Franke herself just got drove to madness, and the day that she got arrested with her secret companion. So buckle up and let's get into it. So the first episode begins with us seeing a child on a Ring doorbell kind of knocking on a door asking for help, with the voiceover of a woman saying that she now believes in Satan.
I think I've come to understand evil in a way that most people don't. I do believe that Satan is a person.
So, you know, we couldn't hope for a better start here. Not really the kind of one that you want to sit down with the family and watch.
One day he could do 6 favors.
Well, what are they?
Taking me to the nearest police station.
Like, already I've got goosebumps. Genuinely, this is such a shocking start of the documentary, and we're not even 2 minutes into it. Now, they do show the full clip of this at the end of the documentary, so stay tuned because we're going to react to the full version of that. We then find out that this child that was knocking on the door asking for help actually escaped from a house nearby. Now, later in this video, we're going to talk about exactly how this happened and whose house this was, but genuinely, it is just so wild. This child was then took to the police station and was found to have lacerations on his back, and he was also severely malnourished. And straight after this, Ruby Franke was arrested for the first time alongside a woman called Jodie, who becomes such a prominent figure in this documentary. We then get our first glimpse of Ruby Franke's ex-husband Kevin, who's going to be coming forward with his story. They then do a series of interviews with the local neighbours who lived around the Frankes, and they give me like Desperate Housewives kind of vibes. Like, this looks like a typical really rich American suburb. They look like the people that would say, well, she was alright until she turned into the devil. I mean, her cookies were nice, and then, you know, one day she just decided to kill everyone. It's then explained to us that Ruby and her family are Mormons, and they live in Utah, which is basically like the capital of being a Mormon. And a prominent thing in Mormon culture is you have to show off your life as if it's perfection to like encourage other people to also join your community. There's even a clip in this documentary where someone who is from the Mormon church is basically telling people to do this.
This is the most important work, to join the conversation by participating on the internet.
And if they do this in return, they will reach the highest level of glory. Now, this is such an important aspect of this documentary because Ruby Franke on YouTube really did portray her and her family as like the perfect kind of model to be. And this sets us up perfectly for our first scene where we witness Ruby in the documentary.
Okay, so the last tip that I have for calendaring is remembering my last tip for
Now already, this kind of give me the shivers because they've got access to all of these raw files, and what is already known publicly is horrific. So the fact that there's 1,000 files like this where they're unedited really makes me worried for what's to come in the rest of this documentary. But straight off the bat, you can see Ruby like rehearsing her lines to make sure it's perfect, so she gives off the perfect image as if she's an absolute saint. And in one of these unaired clips, we get our first glimpse of Ruby's off-camera rage.
Is what I scheduled worth?
Hey, I'm still recording! Why am I hearing all this noise?
Like, you would expect that from, like, a child, you know? But the fact there was a little voice, like, we've all had to experience this as YouTubers, you know, when you're recording in the house and other people are there, but you don't yell the house down. They've got to carry on with their lives. Everyone can't stop because you want to upload your first YouTube video, love. Now, as this doc progresses, we're, like, drip-fed information about Ruby, which has kind of led her down the path she then went down. But one thing straight away I find interesting is Kevin, Ruby's ex-husband, says that she, in her life, her entire goal was to be seen as the perfect mother. However, before starting YouTube, she didn't feel like she was getting any recognition for being a good mother. She felt like she wasn't kind of given enough credit for the job that she does. And this is the sole reason why she started the YouTube channel 8 Passengers, because she wanted the credit and the recognition for being a great mother. They then show a series of clips of this YouTube channel that she started, and straight away you can see how some of the children aren't comfortable being on camera.
Chad, what do you think? Staring at it won't make it turn blue, pal.
Now, we're going to get into my opinion on family channels as a whole later in this video, but straight away, if a camera is making one of your children uncomfortable, surely you don't, like, zoom in even further on their face. Like, this straight away tells me the morals of these people. In every single clip the documentary shows us after this, it's very much Ruby showing that she is the perfect mother, that she doesn't really have any stress, that her family are just perfect. Whereas in reality, that's just not true. Like, if you've got 6 kids, that's really stressful, and that's gonna weigh down on you. Like, having 1 kid is stressful, never mind 6. So it's wild that she only wanted to show the best version of herself to everyone else. It's very Instagram coded, where you only kind of see the good in people, not the bad sides. And I think this is why they got so much love at the start, because people couldn't see no bad in them because they weren't showing any bad. We then get our first sound bites from Chad and Shari, who are Ruby's oldest children. Chad says that he thinks Ruby was a really good mom at the start, and one thing I find really interesting about Shari is she doesn't even call Ruby mom, she just refers to her as Ruby. So that clearly shows the impact that this woman has had on her. The amount of pain that this woman has caused upon Shari to make her not even call her mother anymore. Do you know how much trauma you have to go through to get to that level? I feel so sorry for these children. Ruby's ex-husband Kevin then says that everything at the start was filmed and he was really uncomfortable with it, and there's footage of him actually being uncomfortable on camera.
I'm waiting for, like, to share conversation with you.
I'm listening to you talk.
I'm cutting all of this out. Help me out here.
Even this is really disturbing because she just expects everyone to be as perfect as her on camera. Like, one thing I will tell you about starting YouTube is this is a skill to learn to be able to talk to a camera. Some people just have that ability. I didn't. This took me like years to be comfortable on camera. To just shove a camera in front of your husband's face and expect him to be like Mr. Beast is just mental. To be fair, Mr. Beast isn't that charismatic on camera. He probably wasn't the best example. But it's the fact she sighs and she gets angry with him is a really toxic technique to kind of try and make him feel bad for not being as good as she wants him to be.
Here, I'll pick in. Ready? So, one of the traditions...
Like, look at the way her face changed. It's just so fake. She was literally like... It's just so wild. And obviously the smiling scene is the only scene the public gets to see, so they don't know any of this shite that goes on before. And this is what makes me think about family vlogging channels especially. How many of these channels act this way off camera? There must be loads. Kevin then talks about how he didn't believe in this YouTube thing that Ruby was starting until they received their first paycheck from YouTube, which was $80 in the post. And apparently this just flipped his entire perspective effective on YouTube, and he went for it 100 miles an hour. Again, straight away, this just tells me that, do these people just put money and fame above everything? Like, he just saw a little bit of money and was like, that's alright. Everything else I believe's out the window now. Put their kids on camera, who cares? Now, because they were now earning money, they had to register as a business, and one disturbing thing that they mentioned in the documentary is that they listed all of their children as employees on the company's house in America. Like, the youngest employee was 4 years old. Is that not, like, creepy? Like, why would you list your youngest children? Why would you list any of your children as employees? They're your children. You don't have to list them. Kevin's then questioned by the interviewer if he felt weird doing that, and he said at the time no, because it felt completely normal. But straight away, this shows how they're treating their children. They're not treating them like children, not letting them act like their own kids. They're treating them like employees. And what happens if an employee gets out of line? You know, they get sacked or punished, and this is exactly later in this documentary how Ruby treats the children. However, at this point in the doc, on camera, they don't seem too disturbing yet. There's a clip of Ruby talking about hitting 1 million subscribers, and on camera, at least, she seems quite down to earth at this point.
My big thing has always been mothers are powerful, and it's not the big things that moms do that make them powerful. Power comes in the little things.
Now that seems like a really nice sentiment. Like, I imagine a lot of, you know, mothers would kind of resonate with that at this point, and they would very much put Ruby on a pedestal. It's almost like moms have a voice, like she's saying about like appreciating the little things, etc. This seems like a person that mentally is kind of all there. Now, one of the main selling points, if I can even call it that, of the 8 Passengers YouTube channel was Chad's personality. Chad is the eldest boy in the family. He was considered a fan favourite, and Kevin himself said that Ruby used to exploit this.
Handsome, great at sport, the heartthrob, and the comedic relief, and that's important. Ruby knew that, and she exploited it.
Now, this is something that later in this documentary I want you to give your opinion on, because Kevin's language right throughout this first episode is very much Ruby did this, Ruby exploited this, but he also was a co-parent at this time. He almost doesn't take any responsibility for what was going on this YouTube channel a lot of the time. He very much puts it all on Ruby. Now, I have no doubt that Ruby was the, you know, the real manager of this YouTube channel, but this person is also equally a parent to these kids. They're making joint decisions as parents here. You can't just blame it all on Ruby at this point. Because if you really felt like she was exploiting one of your children, surely you step in. Like, anybody watching this would step in and be like, look, like, remember, this is a child, not an employee. Can we just remember that? Now, because of how popular the family was getting, they had months where they were earning upwards of £100,000 a month, which is just crazy money. And at this point, Ruby had pretty much got everything that she dreamed of and everything that her personality craved. She had the credit for being a great mother. She had like the adulation from other mothers. People were literally converting to be a Mormon because of Ruby and her family.
Alright, so I'm Finn. I'm a kid of 8 passengers. I'm gonna join the Church of Jesus Christ Latter-day Saints.
See, at this point in the documentary, because I didn't know much about Ruby Franke before this, I was thinking myself that she seems like a sound person in these videos, so even I'm being manipulated and I know what happens later in this documentary. It's wild. It seems like she's being sincere here, and maybe she is to an extent, but later in this documentary it makes you question all of these clips, and was she actually just faking and acting this entire time?
By this point, Ruby was effectively America's mom. And of all the moms that YouTube could showcase and highlight and put on a pedestal on Mother's Day, there was Ruby.
Genuinely, this gives us chills. This is so wild. Obviously, YouTube didn't know what was going on behind the scenes. Like, they're not at fault for this. However, in my opinion, this is a little controversial. Should you really be promoting YouTube channels where very young children are the main focus of the content. In my opinion, like, I know some family vlogging channels, they do it really good, where the children aren't like the main employees, the children aren't everything in the videos. It's very much just documenting what the family's doing on a day-to-day basis, which I have no issue with. But when it's all built around the children, I don't feel like YouTube should promote that, because then they're just employees. Like it was listed on the company's house in America, they're not treated like kids anymore. So is this really the thing that you want to kind of put on a pedestal? I know this is just the standard opinion, but anytime kids are being exploited, it just really boils my blood more than anything, because they literally can't fight back. They're only children. They don't know any better. They feel like this is normal. The doc then highlights that Ruby and her family moved to a really rich neighborhood once they started earning a lot of money off YouTube, and the local neighbors hated them straight away because she was vlogging outside and showing their houses.
It's a beautiful day in the neighborhood, a beautiful day for a neighbor. Would you be mine?
By the way, I love how she's like singing with the vlogging camera outside of our houses. If this was in the UK, genuinely, someone would have egged her on a BMX by now. Will you shut up, man? Fuck's sake. Our car would have been petrol bombed. America's just got such a different culture.
Ruby would wear the bright dress, filming, and all of our homes were in the background. And we're just a private community.
These neighbours then talk about how Ruby really wasn't a friendly person. They thought Kevin was really nice. However, they had little to no interaction with Ruby. It's almost like Ruby didn't want to integrate herself into the local community. Now, I don't necessarily think this is really that much of a bad thing. Like, a lot of streets in the UK, like, the neighbours don't talk to the other neighbours. But one thing it does tell you is she's trying to keep a lot of things private to just inside her home that she doesn't want other people to know about. Now, I know a lot of people like to be private people, but when you find out what Ruby was doing in her home, you now know why she didn't integrate herself into the community. Now, although the neighbours said that Kevin was really nice, we do see some unaired footage where Kevin also talks to the kids not very nicely.
The whole reason here is because of our job. And you guys are acting like this is stupid. The kids started to complain about everything, like...
Guess what? Guess why they're complaining? Because they're kids! That's why! That's what kids do! They complain! That is completely normal! How can you say to a kid, like, you need to be happy that we're here because this is your job? It's a child! It doesn't understand the concept of having a 9 to 5! It's the way that Kevin talks about it. It's almost as like, yeah, the kids just, like, they weren't buying into it. It's like, yeah, there's a reason for that. Do you not think they just want to go on holiday and have fun? They don't want to have to re-say things over and over so it's perfect so the mom likes it so she can put it in a video. They just want to be a family. They just want to enjoy themselves. They're children. This is the start of the documentary, kind of showing us footage where both the parents would blackmail the kids into appearing to be happy so the video was better. There's one clip where Ruby is like bribing the children to act good for the video.
Do you know that this is what we do? And everyone gets $10 for a video that they help with. Do you want $10?
What's a baby gonna do with $10? Right? Chad, fair enough, he could probably use $10. Still weird that you're bribing him with it though. But a baby! What, is the baby just gonna go down the shop and get a Lucasade with it? Like, what are you gonna do with $10? Also, the fact it's only $10 when the family is making £100,000 a month off these videos. And you learn later down the line that they weren't actually storing the money to help the children when they get older. They were literally just giving them $10 because that's all they wanted to give them. Shari says that at this point is where the entire family's life revolved around YouTube. Like, everything they did involved YouTube in some sort of way. They never just did stuff as a family without the camera. And this is where Chad started to have an issue with it. He couldn't really deal with it.
Smile. Chad, look at me.
Keep smiling at lenses.
Okay, let's go back.
Like, could you imagine what this must be like for Chad at school? You know, all these kids going to school, like, they're uploading anything in these videos, so even the embarrassing moments, like, this is going to be really hard for him when he has to go to school every day and the kids might be taking the mick out of him and he's got to appear happy on camera because that's what his mom wants. Like, he's living for everyone else but himself and he's only a child. Chad then says he couldn't take it anymore when they started getting brand deals because this just made things 10 times worse.
It says, do you think your teen's mental health is more important than school and grades?
Do you know where I sit with that? Chad, are you gonna...
He doesn't give a shit! Love! Honestly, right? If he could boil down how much shits he gave, it would be this. And guess what that is, love? 0.
I made things hard for her, and I don't know why. I think it just goes back to I really didn't like being told what to do.
I genuinely think he was just going through a period, as every teenager does, where you just have like a rebellion phase, except his was all on camera, which just makes it 10 times worse. And you see how different Ruby acts on and off camera with her children. And I think I find this documentary so interesting so far, because this happens so much within YouTube, but obviously like from an audience perspective, you just don't see it. Like some people that you probably think are really nice that you watch who are family vloggers might actually not be nice people, but you just can't, you don't have access to the entire footage to kind of have a full perspective on what these people are actually like. And I don't want to just say family vloggers, like just anyone in general. Realistically, I could be a murderer, okay? But just for like a few hours a day I do this, you know, you don't know. Now, during this period of Chad kind of rebelling, he had been excluded from a few schools. Now, if this was me and my child was really struggling with his school life and just struggling in all aspects of his life, surely you just kind of take him out the vlogs, or at least stop vlogging for a little period of time, just to kind of help him cope with the emotions he's going through. You know, putting your children first over your career. However, instead of doing this, Ruby and Kevin decided to just vlog the entire process of him getting therapy. Like, what is going on? This is a child. Getting therapy is already daunting in itself. Imagine having to do that on camera. Now, the therapist that Ruby decided to choose for Chad was a woman called Judy Hildebrandt. That is the woman that was arrested at the start of this documentary, so you can see where this is going. She was known to have a glowing reputation within the community that Ruby and their family were a part of. She even posted her own videos to some sort of Mormon website, and it said that Ruby fell in love with her teachings and the way that she portrayed her words. There's a clip of Chad being on therapy with Jodie and both of his parents either side of him, and straight away Chad kind of feels inferior to Jodie because Jodie figures out that Chad's lying to her straight away and he didn't know how.
This random person I've never met before just said, "You're lying to me, Chad." And I just remember thinking like, well, yeah, I'm lying to you, but you just said it? Like, and I remember I looked at my mom, and my mom looked at my dad, and my mom kind of smiled a little bit, like she smirked.
Now, instantly, from a child's perspective, I know this sounds stupid, but you're going to think that this woman is like superhuman. Like, as a child, you don't really understand the term therapist. It's just kind of explained to you. So if you're going to see this professional therapist and she can figure out if you're lying, you're going to think that she knows when you're lying all the time. So you're going to just feel inferior to her and do whatever she wants you to do. Otherwise, she's going to tell your mom or your dad that you're lying and you're messing up again. So instantly, the power dynamic here is toxic, in my opinion. Later in this documentary, we're going to see what a horrifying person this Jodie is. You can even see in Chad's voice and the way he's kind of carrying himself when he's talking about her, how much this woman has scarred him. Now, when Jodie got involved with the Franke family, this is where Chad's life kind of went downhill. Jodie suggested to Ruby and Kevin that they should punish Chad for his behaviour, even though he's not really doing anything wrong. He's just being a teenager. I need to make that very clear. They ended up taking everything he loved away from him, such as like his games console, stuff he used to play with. They even sent him to some sort of church camp, and they even made him sleep in the basement for several months until he earned the privilege of having his bedroom back. Like, what mother and father does that? Like, I'm sorry, even when Kevin is saying that it was Ruby who was making these decisions, as a father, surely you know that this is not right. You can't make your child sleep in the basement because he's acting up and doesn't want to be in YouTube videos. What are we doing here? Are we okay? Genuinely? This doesn't even relate to religion or, you know, teachings. This is just being a father and a mother to a child. It's interesting to me that they never thought the impact this would have on him when he got older.
Chad today has just entered the Anasazi Foundation Wilderness Therapy Program.
Just for a second, put yourself in Chad's boots. Okay? Imagine you've been sent to this like therapy church camp and then your own parents are on YouTube uploading a video where is Chad and talking about how, you know, you're kind of struggling, that's why you're there. I would never speak to them ever again. I'd be like, what are you doing? Stop clickbaiting me therapy, man. Now, one of the most positive moments in this documentary for me personally was when Chad decided to bring up this situation on camera for the first time.
When we take something away, it's because they have shown that they are not responsible enough to manage it. Have I ever given something back less than 6 months?
My bedroom was taken away for 7 months, and then you give it back like a couple weeks ago.
I don't think our viewers know that.
Genuinely. Like, when I first saw that clip for the first time, I paused it and just started walking around my room for like 2 minutes. It just mind blowers. Mind blowers? Mind blowers. I don't know the English, okay? I'm just shocked. Appalled, you could even say. You know what? I'm not shocked. I'm just disappointed, love. The fact that when he brings this up, she just laughs and does that kind of like, haha, everything's fine to the camera is so disturbing because she's not even taken into account how this made him feel. He's clearly distressed here. He clearly feels angry. He feels upset. He's feeling so many emotions about this being done to him. And his mother just doesn't register any of these at all. She just has no connection emotionally with her child.
I've been sleeping on a beanbag since October, and they gave my room back like 2 weeks ago.
Now, this was the start of how everything went downhill for the Franke family. You might have watched that clip and thought, oh, that's definitely like an unaired clip. Surely Ruby wouldn't edit this and go, you know what, that's fine to leave in. But she did. That actually was uploaded in a YouTube video, and this is where obviously the reaction from the viewers was catastrophic. Why would you include this? Like, why would you do it anyway? But why would you include this if you're trying to portray yourself to be the perfect mother? It makes no sense. The only way I can kind of make sense of it is Ruby in her head genuinely believed what she was doing was good and great and people would have no issue with it. She thought that was normal practice to make your child want to behave again. And in my opinion, I feel like she just has this god complex at this moment. Like, her channel, she's got millions of people, especially mothers, looking up to her. She's got the recognition she always wanted. At this point, she feels like she can do no wrong and treat everyone around her exactly how she wants to because she's perfect. It's very hard to see things from Ruby's point of view, and I know in these videos I always try and offer a balanced point of view, but it's just the fact that she's doing this against kids. It's very hard to see this from her perspective. Now, after this, the documentary really shows the reaction from the public after this got uploaded.
So everyone scrambles. Ruby takes the video down. But I think what she was unprepared for was the torrent of pure hatred.
How can you be surprised? Like, this is what really blows my mind. Now, this specific clip by itself is terrible and is enough to bury like any YouTuber if this came out, like if they were treating their kids this way. However, what made it more shocking to the audience is obviously, like I've mentioned in this video, Ruby was on such a pedestal where even YouTube like posted her on Mother's Day. So she's not just falling from like a normal level, she's falling from the highest of high standards to the lowest of low standards, and this is why it was just so shocking to the public, on top of it already being a shocking clip. One thing I did find concerning is how Kevin kind of refers to the cancellation.
We saw it as an innocent religious family that's being attacked unjustly by cancel culture.
What? The fact that at the time of this happening, they made themselves out to be the victims is pretty crazy. That, like, it's almost like their egos are just so out of control that they believe that they're better than everyone else and anyone hating on them is just a hater and jealous. You can't just say you're an innocent Mormon family. Like, that just doesn't cut it with this situation. That doesn't paper over the cracks of you being abusive to your children. And this is why I start to question Kevin in this documentary, because so far he's put all the responsibility on Ruby. However, he has to take some responsibility for this.
Do you think they had a point? Any of it valid, do you think?
From my perspective now, is any of it valid? Sure. I think a lot of it was valid.
This guy, like, I don't want to be too harsh on him because obviously he also, later in this video, you're going to see how he was also brainwashed by Ruby and Jodie. But his morals have to come into question during all of this too. One thing that makes the documentary so good is the interviewer, who seems like a British guy, is so cutthroat with these questions. He doesn't let Kevin get off the hook with answers. He like pries him and he challenges him. And it makes it more authentic and actually gives us what we want to hear about situations. So credit to the interviewer for that.
Just be yourself.
That is myself.
Well, then change it.
I've learned that there was a whole lot of horror that was going on in the shadows and behind the scenes.
It's the ripple effects that really concern me here. Like, imagine a child getting told that, oh, yourself isn't good enough, so you need to change it to make me happy. Like, that is a lasting impact that that child is going to take into adulthood and to the day they die.
We're gonna cut that out. You get down and you be quiet.
And cut.
Yeah, we're cutting that out.
Now, this again is so interesting because Kevin has literally just said he's come to learn that there was a lot of disturbing things happening behind the scenes, behind his back. He's very much filming this, so clearly he filmed a lot of these videos. He knew situations that were going on that possibly were concerning. This is clear evidence of this, and this is why the documentary has put it straight after him saying that it was happening behind the scenes where he couldn't see. Now, later in this video, I am going to talk about how I actually have a lot of sympathy for Kevin, but I just want to keep this balanced and make sure that I'm giving just an objective opinion throughout this, so I hope you do appreciate that. At this point in the documentary, we're coming to the end of the first episode, and this is where the doc really ramps up the pace and the kind of severity of the topics talked about. Chad begins to talk about some of the cruel punishments that he'd receive off his parents.
She would spank, whip, take the belt out and whip my butt.
You know, he'd get a bloody nose and I'd bring him, toilet paper and didn't really know what to do.
Why are you giving your child a bloody nose? Sentence finished. Full stop. Okay. Secondly, over YouTube content. Love, it's not that serious. Okay.
He got beat really bad one time and I helped him clean blood off the walls.
Now, Kevin, again, has said that, he's come to learn later down the line there was loads of disturbing things happening. Surely you can see there's blood on the walls in your own home when all of this is going on. Like, that is something that I would notice if I came home. That's not just something that you just walk by if you see blood splats on the wall. And also, you'd be able to look at your child and be like, why is Chad's nose facing east when it should be facing straight ahead?
So tell us who you're named after.
Grandpa.
Okay, we're gonna try this again. You be a little more talkative here.
If I'm gonna let you
I don't
vlog, and if I'm gonna spend all my time helping you, you're gonna help me too. Be excited to tell them where your name came from, even if you have to fake it.
There was so much just in that one clip that is so concerning. It seems like everyone in this family has to walk on eggshells around Ruby, otherwise they're going to upset her. You can clearly see that your child doesn't want to be on camera at this moment, so just think of something else to film, something just with you or with one of your other 5 children. This makes me want to cry for this little boy. Because at the start, he had so much personality, and now he just looks like a walking zombie. Like, there's just no soul to him. The soul's been ripped out of him. He's not being allowed to be a child anymore. He has to just be this constant slave to the YouTube videos. Chad should feel the most comfortable in the world around his mother. He should be able to feel any emotion around his mother, and his mother can comfort him. And the fact he has nobody in this house he can go to for comfort, whoa, I know this is in the past, but this is so sad. Can you imagine how isolated and lonely this young lad would be feeling right now? That he just feels like he's got nobody to talk to about how he's feeling, and he's not allowed to feel sad, and when he is feeling sad, he has to fake that he's feeling happy. I can't imagine what that's like for Chad now, having to process his adult emotions and kind of rewrite his entire brain chemistry, because everything he's learned about how to deal with these emotions has been so cruel and toxic. And that actually is the end of episode 1, and then we're teased what's coming in episode 2 and 3, and it just seems like the situation goes so much worse. Now, episode 2 begins with Chad and Shari basically telling us that the family lost 90% of their monthly income after the cancellation. Ruby was panicking so much that she hired a top lawyer to help her with the situation, and the top lawyer suggested that she apologizes, and this was her response.
Ruby's response to that was, over my dead body. I'm not sorry. I'm saving my family.
How are you saving your family? What do you mean? Sticking your oldest in the basement is saving him? That's a nice thing. Cheers, love. Mum's the best superhero. She puts kids in basements. What? Bet you wish you had my mum. She's really saving me. I haven't had sunlight for weeks. She's a real catch. This just shows her ego and that she actually believed that she's a higher power, which you're going to see later in this video, how that spirals out of control. She genuinely felt like she could do no wrong, and if she admits that she's done something wrong, it also devalidates her own thoughts about her being the perfect mom and that she actually can do wrong, and her ego just can't take that hit. Whereas realistically, if she did just come out and apologize and be like, you know what, like, you're so right, this is horrific what I've done, that is not gonna, like, you know, make everything okay, but it's a start to kind of change the way that you're treating these children, because the main thing is people aren't attacking you, Ruby, for you. They're attacking you because of they're feeling bad for your children. They want your children to be okay. That is the main source of people's concern. Now, after some people get cancelled, they often like really switch up their content strategy, and Ruby decided to go down the route of being heavily religious on camera now. Now, because Ruby was feeling really isolated and really low, and you know, this platform that she once had been torn apart against her will and her own opinion, she turned to the guidance of a woman called Jodie Hillbrandt. Now, this is the same woman she hired for Chad's therapy, and the same woman that was in the intro getting arrested and her house barged down. So at this point, we need to just close the gap and find out how we go from this point to the police barging down her door. Now, I've mentioned previously, this Jodie was put on a pedestal a lot like what Ruby is. There's a lot of similarities on their journeys. And at this point in the doc, Ruby looks to Jodie for guidance. It's almost like having a mentor during this low moment. However, we find out that Jodie isn't the woman she says she is. She often preys on vulnerable people that are easily influenced, people that are going through hard times in their lives and just need like a shoulder to cry on or someone to kind of tell them it's going to be okay. Jodie takes these people in and manipulates them. And some of the clips of this woman doing her content are so concerning. Just quickly, donuts, before we proceed with this documentary, if you do want to be in the before 500,000 club, press subscribe now. We're closing in on 500,000 donuts in this community, so if you want to be one of those 500,000 donuts before we hit that mark, press subscribe. You've only got one chance. Do it.
If you're like me, you've had pain in your life, anxiety, depression, connections is the solution.
Now, you're probably wondering what Connections is. Well, that's her company, her community of people that she leads. Now, is that not just disturbing in itself? Being like, yeah, depression, anxiety, the thing you need, not better help. It's Connections. It's like I really don't love. I think I just need a warm bath and no noise and pitch black, really, if I'm being honest. And I just want to be in my own pain. It's a little bit deep, isn't it? How many of them I had? Christ. So she very much markets herself as the cure to these, you know, mental illnesses, which is just like a little bit, it's a little bit far in my opinion. Now, this Connections business is basically her community of other Mormons where they can all come together and talk about their beliefs. Well, mainly just listen to Jodie's beliefs and they all kind of follow. There's a therapist in this doc who used to work for Jodie, and he described it as kind of like a church, and Jodie is the self-proclaimed God in it. Now, when anyone proclaims themselves as a god, that's normally, you know, where I kind of like distance myself from them, in my opinion. That's where it's just too intense for me. You know, I don't want someone in the group chat that believes they're a prophet. For me, little bit intense. Kevin himself said that he went to one session and he described it as a man-hating cult, and all of the beliefs were just so off, which, listening to some of the beliefs that Jodie says, I have to agree with them. I'm very much somebody that, you know, sees things from all perspectives, very rarely takes sides, but with this, I am taking Kevin's side, because some of the things that this woman says in this documentary is just wild. However, after Kevin attended these classes, his relationship with Ruby actually improved. And in Ruby's head, this kind of validated that Jodie's teachings were the thing she should be following. And a little bit later down the line, Jodie actually made Ruby Ruby one of the coaches of the group, so she was able to stand up with a microphone and preach to these women about how they should live their lives. Now, already, I find this really concerning. I'm sure you do too. If she felt like she wanted to go to one of these sessions or be a part of this group to, you know, just kind of heal and become a better person overall and listen to people speak, that is completely fine. But in my opinion, Ruby Franke is in no position to lecture any other woman about how they should raise their kids and live their lives. However, Jodie decided to pick her as a coach because she really wanted to manipulate Ruby for our audience so she can kind of get her own connections business out there on a big platform. That is one overriding theme in this documentary. It's just people who are more powerful manipulating weaker people than themselves. I just can't believe they let Ruby speak. It's like, you know, if Bin Laden went to some better help classes, that's fine, okay? He wants to, you know, learn from his mistakes. All right, go ahead, fella. But guess what? You're not going to lecture me how to live my life. I've seen what you can do. And a few weeks after Ruby was coaching the members of this community, her and her husband really became the faces of Connections, which again just validates in Ruby's personality that need to want to be liked, to be validated, to be respected, to just be given credit for being good at something. I honestly believe that Ruby Franke is just such an insecure person that she constantly needs reassurance that people like her and people want to be her. And it's around this time that Ruby actually ditched the YouTube name 8 Passengers and changed it to Moms of Truth. Like, what? Moms of Truth, sign me up. I'm joking, I really don't want to be in that. That sounds like my idea of hell, I'm not gonna lie. Or Dads of Truth, that would be even worse. Imagine your mom's got a channel, Moms of Truth, and your dad's competing with her. Christ, imagine that. No, thank you, YouTube. I'm okay. I'll delete the app, thank you very much. And since the channel had been renamed to this, Jodie actually took a role as the main presenter on the channel. So she's manipulated Ruby into our community and then got a hold of our YouTube channel. Like, this is absolutely wild. Ruby was the sidekick at this point on her own channel that she'd built up.
I'm Jodie Hildebrand, the founder of Connections. And I'm Ruby Franke, Jodie's sidekick. Don't let the sidekick fool you. She is full of wisdom.
No, she's not. She's not full of wisdom, Jodie. You bellend.
Ruby had sent out an invitation to the entire neighborhood, inviting all of us to join Moms of Truth. And I was like, heck yeah.
This is so funny. I'm not trying to group all Americans in this because I know, you know, you're not all the same. Obviously, I know that. But it is so funny how American culture just invites that. Like, honestly, if someone from the UK got invited to a group called Moms of Truth, they're probably blocking the person. Americans are like, heck yeah, man. I got some truths that I want to tell. I'm a mom. Sign me up. Put me in the game, coach. I'm ready. However, after these mothers actually joined, they were concerned about the type of content that was getting posted straight away.
My kids were being hurt with entitlement. They were being hurt with people's advice.
She believed inside that we were destined to be a part of something earth-shifting. Part of God's work.
This is genuinely like a concerning thing that is going to happen more and more. I don't mean like involving children, but I mean people gaining an influence on social media and then thinking that they're picked by some higher power. You've just got a few subscribers. Okay, you're making a bit of money, a lot of money. Yeah, your life's changed and this is a life that you couldn't have dreamed of. But that doesn't mean that you're picked by a higher power. You might have got this because of hard work. You might have got this because of pure luck. This doesn't mean you're better than other people and can put yourself on a pedestal where other people should listen to you. Like, I think when people have a certain personality, when that's amplified by followers, it just makes it so catastrophic. The fact that Ruby thought that she was a higher power was amplified even more when the documentary covers COVID. The Frankes believed that this entire situation, this pandemic, was the second coming of Christ, and that the end of the world was happening and they were going to be a part of it as one of the saviors. And this was only echoed by Jodie, like she was just reaffirming these opinions.
Our job is to educate you. There is a higher power that's organized and is moving in this world. And those principles come from that higher source, that energy I call God.
Now, I don't want to trash on people's, religious beliefs, etc. Because I've grew up in, like I've mentioned this before, a very heavily Catholic community. I'm not wanting to do this in this video. If you have any self-awareness about yourself, why would you think, if this was God, that he would pick the woman that makes her children sleep in the basement? Do you not think he'd have better soldiers to pick from? Surely there's a better pool of people to help him. Why would they listen to Ruby Franke? Is what I'm trying to say. This entire situation just spiraled Jodie and Ruby out of control. They believed they were some sort of prophets. Jodie actually believed that she was being stalked by hooded men who were wearing masks in the night, posing as Satan to stop her on this journey. And because she was kind of crashing out all of the time, Ruby invited Jodie into her home to stay with her family for a period of time until she healed. And this turned out to be one of the worst decisions that was ever made for this family. Straight away, Ruby said to her eldest daughter, Shari, that she had to pack all of her things out of her bedroom because it's now going to be Jodie's bedroom. Shari said that she was going to college in 2 weeks anyway, so it didn't really bother her. But even the fact that she's like kicking her out even before her body's cold, do you know what I mean? Like, this is her bedroom that she grew up in. I'm sure she would even feel sad if her mum had changed it after she'd left, because that's like a bedroom and they've got such a big house. It's not like they need it. But the fact that some random woman is just coming and taking it over before you've even left, it just reaffirms how Ruby really didn't value her children's feelings at all, or never took them into account. Like, it would just make me feel so worthless and feel like my parents don't even care about us. Now, straight away after Jodie moves in, we witness how mentally unwell she is.
But after Jodie came into the picture, weird things started happening in our house. Jodie would go into these possessed trances.
I am good. I'm alright, mate. Sorry. Not for me. I can't do this shit. Sorry, if you're inviting what is a random woman, really, into your home and she starts like having possessed trances when I have 6 of my children in this house, I'm kicking her out. Genuinely. Like, unless I'm just surrounding her in dream catchers and like salt, and she's not allowed to leave that area. I'll give her McDonald's, I'll give her whatever she wants, but just she has to stay there. Especially when they're religious themselves. Why would you bring this evil into your own home? You're not thinking about your children.
And she would start speaking in other voices.
She's not. She's not. She knows.
Now, obviously, this is signs of something else. I don't want to diagnose this woman, but they believe that it's religious reasons why this is happening. But again, can we just think of the children's perspectives? How would they feel knowing that this is going on in their houses, bearing in mind they already don't feel safe as it is? This is just going to amplify them feelings by 100. Also, the fact that this is filmed, like, why is this on camera? Like, why would you film someone who you believe is possessed on camera? Surely, like, you ring someone, or like you perform an exorcism. On the topic of that, Kevin actually performed consistent exorcisms on this woman in his own home. Genuinely, what is going on? Imagine returning home from school and you're like, oh, Dad, what you doing? Oh, don't mind me, son. Right, I'm just going to give Jodie an exorcism. Only a 5-minute one. Right, just a short one. Right, enjoy your sausage rolls, though. I don't even know where you would perform an exorcism. But, like, don't do it in your own home. Do it, like, I don't know, behind a bike shed or something. Somewhere where you've got a roof, I don't know. Do you need a roof for an exorcism? I don't even know what you need. You just need a cross and a bed, don't you? And something to tie them to the bed with. Starting to get a little bit kinky, you know? No, it's not. But in these exorcisms, there was constant screaming, and the children are literally a couple of doors down. Like, all of this would be absorbed by them kids, and it's going to leave so much lasting trauma, obviously.
I would command the demons to depart. And those evil spirits were very reactive.
How did she react?
She would thrash and hiss and wail and growl.
It's even the fact that this man now still believes that he was able to perform an exorcism on someone, like he has that sort of power as just a normal bloke. He still genuinely believes that he was able to beat the demons out of this woman. Now, because Jodie was really struggling, Ruby then ended up sleeping in the same bed as Jodie on a night time to make sure she was okay. And this is the start of where Kevin got a little bit worried that their relationship wasn't just a friendship, it was going far past that. And in Connections talks, Jodie would often single out Kevin as like a person that is doing bad stuff now. Like they'd often like clown on him a lot of the time. Jodie was basically trying to drive a wedge between Ruby and Kevin and split them apart so that she could have Ruby all for herself. This is what it's insinuated anyway. And the most disastrous effect of Jodie now getting her claws into this family and becoming kind of the head of the family in a weird way is the effect this had on the younger children. Now, you might have seen their faces have been blurred, and they've been blurred to hide their identities because they were so young in this documentary, which I do appreciate them doing that. It's just unfortunate that Shari and Chad were old enough to, you know, kind of talk about this now, and they had to experience all of this firsthand. And Chad recalls how one Christmas, 2 of his younger siblings received no Christmas presents because they'd apparently been naughty that year, and they'd have to watch all of the other siblings open up their Christmas presents. Now, straight away, how would that make a child feel? Like, that's something a child will never forget. Like loads of Christmas presents for your brothers and sisters, but you haven't got any. That would just make them feel so down. And why would you want a child to ever feel like that?
At this point, I was in college, so when Christmas came, I went home. Like, it was so tangible that just something was off.
This makes me so angry. It's so hard in this documentary. This is the one thing that I think is the hardest thing covering this, is just not getting angry and not reacting aggressively, because these people are evil to these children. They're really evil. Chad then opens up about how every single time that he kissed a girl or he watched Korn, he'd have to confess it to Jodie. And because he kept confessing this to Jodie, he then felt comfortable enough to tell his own mother. And he said the first time he told Ruby about it, he'd never seen her more angry.
As she was crying, she kind of got surprised because it clicked. Oh my gosh, everything that happened to Jodie, all the possession, all the attacks, all the satanic attacks that were happening to Jodie, it was all because of you and what you were doing behind our back.
What? You're saying that this woman is having demons possess her because he's watching a little bit of Korn? He's a teenager! What, because he kissed a girl? She's now got 5 more voices in her that are demons? Where's the correlation here? Every girl he kisses, does she then get the voice of them? How can you blame this on this child just doing what like a normal boy does at that age? It's almost like she just can't think logically about anything, and the first chance she ever gets to blame her children about something, she takes it. She'll fit her own narratives to make her children look like the bad people at all times. It's almost like she can never see herself in a bad light, so she puts that bad light onto everyone around her. Like, what was happening? Was this guy like opening up Pornhub, clicking a video, and then he just hears Jodie scream? Unless that was happening, and then Ruby might have a point, but I don't believe it was. And because of this, he actually got kicked out of the house because Ruby believed that he was the one creating this satanic behaviour in the household. Which, again, to kick your child out over this is wild. Like, surely you want him to be going out and just doing stuff that boys do. Like, you know, boys, like, you know, you end up liking a girl in school or whatever. That's just normal behaviour for a child to do. And he's constantly getting punished for doing normal things. It's almost like they're trying to zap any enjoyment from this kid's life, like, out of his life at all. Unless he's happy on camera, they don't want him happy at any other time. And straight after this, Kevin returns home from work, and Ruby flips out on Kevin and tells Kevin that she wants him to pack up all of his things and leave also. It's almost at this point that Jodie really has kind of got her claws into Ruby and manipulated her to think that everyone around her is evil and the only people she needs is Jodie and her youngest children. Jodie and Ruby are basically removing anyone from the house that is old enough to have an opinion. The only people that are left in the house are young children who just idolise their mother and just want to make her happy at any cost. It's just so sad. Kevin recalls this disturbing situation where he's hugging his children saying bye, and one of them is basically pleading and begging for him to stay because obviously they know what their mom is like. And whilst Kevin is also crying, hugging his child, Ruby is there filming this happening and smirking behind the camera.
Ruby was photographing it on her phone, and she had this smirk or this smile on her face that she just, I don't know what she was thinking, but it looked like this look of, oh, this is such good content.
Now at this point, I honestly feel like Ruby, she's not the person she was before she started YouTube. At this point, she's like this total different, she's just not human anymore, basically. Like, she's not thinking empathetically at all. Like, Heaven is somebody that she built an entire family with, she's been with for ages, and the fact she would smile at his pain, it's a tough one. I do sympathise with him because he's just trying to make the love of his life happy. However, I feel like at this point he really has to, in my opinion, grow a set of balls and put his foot down and be like, I am not leaving my children in this situation where there's a suspected satanic possessed person here. I am not leaving these children out of my sight. If I am leaving this house, I'm taking the children with us. And it's such a shame that he didn't have that, like, he didn't feel like he had that authority to do that, because this would have changed everything for what's about to come. On top of this, Ruby also cancelled all of Shari's health insurance, her car insurance, basically anything she was paying for her daughter. She just cancelled it and basically disowned her at this point.
Shari just melted, just fell apart. She was just still shaking, and she was looking through her phone, looking, and she said, this is my mom. And she said, that's not my mom.
That's the second time I've seen that clip, and it still hits us. Like, that is actually so sad. She's still a child at that point. Like, she doesn't understand why her mom's just not being her mom. Like, this person that she literally came out of and she looked up to for the start of her life doesn't want anything to do with that, and is basically saying she hates her and wants nothing to do with her. That is something that I just can never wrap my head around ever, no matter what your beliefs are. Now at this point, like I said, the 4 children are left in this house with just Ruby and Jodie, the only adults. Obviously, that's like a nightmare blunt rotation. And that is the end of episode 2, and we go into the final episode, which is the most shocking of them all. Now, episode 3 starts off again with the footage of Jodie's house getting barged down by the police. And the doc lets us know that we're going to find out what has happened to these young children now they've been left alone with Ruby and with Jodie. Now, at this point, the content that is being produced by both Ruby and Jodie is just too disturbing to even kind of commentate on.
What I say is often really difficult for people to hear. Your woke child is a walking zombie, and you have an opportunity to wake the zombie up.
What does that even mean? Even zombies are woke now? God, a woke kid zombie? What does that even mean? This is the one thing that really confuses me about this woman, because obviously she's so easily manipulated into thinking like certain ways and certain beliefs. But this is not a stupid woman. Ruby Franke grew a YouTube channel to huge numbers. That takes a certain amount of intelligence. It just baffles me how the negative traits of her personality really just consumed her and just overtook everything in her life and made her such an awful human being. Now, as this more concerning content is getting pumped out, the interviewer actually asks Kevin why he didn't put his foot down, why he didn't stand up for his children.
Why didn't you stand up to say, this is nonsense? You know what I mean?
I know. And if I dwell on that question, it eats me alive.
Now, what we've learned about Kevin's personality is he was very much like a quiet person. He's very much a person that lets people walk all over him. He says that he was a quiet, kind of nerdy character. He was almost in awe that he was able to get a girl like Ruby to be married to someone like that. And what I've gathered from just observing this guy and those kind of characteristics, he really just has no ounce in him that stands up for himself. Like, he would rather just let people walk all over him and let people talk to him how they want to talk to him. Like, the fact that he didn't like stand up for his children after he knew how they were being treated, it honestly makes us so sad, because he had such an opportunity to stop this from happening. What is going on? But instead, when some of his children were reaching out to him being like, can you please help the family, he was blocking them. Like, there's no excuse for that. You're just trying to hide and run away from your problems and take no responsibility. Like, these are your children. These aren't just random people. These are literally half of you. So I'm getting angry here.
I love principals more than my child. Yikes, that's a really, and that is truth.
That is the truth.
Don't let the child control and dictate what goes on.
First off, that first clip, if you had anybody that was really your friend who listened to you say something like that and doesn't put you in check, then they are not a friend. The fact you just said you love principles more than your children. What do you mean a principle? What do you mean? I actually love not saying sorry more than I love my kids. Call me old-fashioned, guys. It's like, no, that just makes you a prick. It's very interesting to see how she grew to hate her children, even though her children were the main reason why she got to the position of wealth she did. She used her children to become famous and to become rich, and once her children didn't want to take part in that anymore, she then grew this hatred for them. It's such a weird pipeline. She doesn't feel grateful to them at all. It's almost like they owed her that in her mind. Now, it's said by the neighbours at this point that Ruby would leave her young children in the house for hours, if not days. Like, they would walk past the house and the kids would be looking at them through the window, and then they would walk the next day and the kids wouldn't have moved, which is just shocking considering how young these kids are. Like, they always need to be kind of observed, and they were just kind of left to their own devices really whilst Ruby was out with Jodie. This actually led to Shari calling the police to basically ask, like, pleading with them to just go and, you know, make sure that the kids are okay, just to go and check on them. Now, the police did actually arrive at the house and they knocked on the door, but nobody answered and they weren't able to go in apparently.
They needed to get a warrant by the judge, and the officer said that the judge would not sign off on it.
And many of the neighbours were texting Kevin to, like, let him know the police were outside.
I'm like, hey man, cops are outside your house. Hope things are okay. What's going on?
I tried to text Kevin and I was blocked.
Now, at this point, obviously, Kevin has been heavily brainwashed and manipulated by Ruby and by Jodie. He's just trying to get them back and he doesn't want to upset them. However, there is no excuse for abandoning your kids like this. Like any father, if you see a text message saying the police are outside your house, your kids are in there with nobody, you're like, I would bust a gut to get there no matter where you are. Not even if you were in a different country, you'd fly back. The fact he just blocked these numbers and just ignored it shows his character to a T, what type of person he really is. That's just my opinion. I know some people feel sorry for him, I know some people hate him, but that's just where I stand on it. And after this, the entire case was closed and the children were just left in the house. It's just mental to me that the police could watch the mother upload videos like this and not step in.
You need to get a surgical knife. You need to put the kid out and surgically go in and find the infection.
What are you saying, love? What is this madness? Stop it at once! Why did I sound like Dobby there? Harry Potter must not return to Hogwarts! Oh no, don't say I sound like Dobby when I go high-pitched. That's gonna haunt us. Someone needs to surgically take away my voice box at this point. At this point, the documentary then proceeds 10 months in the future, the day that everything changed. Now we come back to the exact clip the entire documentary started off with, where one of the Franke children escapes from a local house and knocks on the neighbour. Like, already, you know, obviously we've seen the start of this audio already, but when you look at this young child's legs, he looks so skinny. He just looks like skin and bones. Like, he doesn't even look skinny. That's like not even, that doesn't even do it justice. Like, genuinely, he looks malnourished.
Yes. Hi, I was just wondering if you could do 2 favors of taking me to the nearest police station.
What's going on, sir? Have a seat there. Have a seat.
This is like really hard to watch. This is really tough to watch. Obviously, anything with children being mistripped, but the fact that, you know, you can tell in his voice how he's just trembling. He's so scared. He's managed to escape, and this honestly, like, this has been reported in the documentary that this child escaping literally saved his own life and saved his siblings' lives. There's a scene where the old man who lives here is calling the police, and he breaks down in tears himself.
I just had a 12-year-old boy show up here at my front door asking for help. He said he just left through the porch at the neighbor's house. Her name is Jodie Hildebrand. This kid has obviously been
Obviously, if you want to watch the rest of that clip, you can go watch the documentary, but this is, I can't watch any more of that. The fact that an old man is being brought to tears just by the sheer sight of this boy shows how badly this boy was being treated in Jodie's house. They explain in the documentary, like, the specifics about his body, etc., which I don't even think I can say on YouTube. All you need to know is it is so traumatic. The boy then tells the police that his younger sister is unfortunately still in the house, and this is where the police actually knock on Jodie's house to gain access.
Jodie? I need you to step out.
I have my turn. Whoa.
Like, already you know that you're doing something wrong when you open the door and you've already got the lawyer on the phone. Like, we haven't even said anything yet.
But don't you have to have a warrant?
Right at this moment, we don't.
Now, watching this the first time was genuinely, like, I know this had already happened, but I was so just hoping they find the daughter. Like, it felt like this was happening in real time. The documentary does a great job of, like, really, you know, recreating how this must have felt for the police officers. The police then do a full swoop of the property and they find this one door, which is like, it's like locked by some sort of like huge safe number. They ask Jodie for the number and Jodie says that she's forgot it. However, the number is actually just 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 when one of the police officers just does that on like a whim, thinking like, oh, this is a stupid idea, I'll just do it, and it actually was that code. Like, these are the biggest idiots I've ever seen in my life.
The girl looked like a young boy sitting there, shaved head, real skinny. Didn't talk to us.
Genuinely, this is one of the most shocking things I've ever witnessed, and it's the fact it's all true. This is one of these real stories where if this was made up into, like, you know, some sort of Netflix series, you'd be like, oh, well, that would never happen. But it's the fact that this is the actual footage. Like, this isn't recreatements. This is the actual people shown in these videos, which just makes it so much more horrifying. The child was literally just sitting in this tiny room in the middle, it's just not even reacting to the people coming in, just so dejected of life. One of the police officers actually says that he doesn't want to leave the little girl, he just wants to stay with her, and you can see him getting choked up when he's talking about it. Like, anybody, you don't even have to have children or to have had younger siblings to realise the horror of this situation. Now, you might be wondering, what is Ruby and Kevin doing during all of this? Well, Ruby actually rang Kevin for the first time in over a year at this specific moment.
It was Ruby and then the heart emoji. She was in a panic and she said, I have some explaining to do. And she started to share with me that the 2 younger children were demonically possessed. I remember asking, well, how do you know? And she said, well, they've confessed to it.
Now, I know I don't need to explain this to you just understand, but obviously the children weren't demonically possessed, and yes, they admitted to it because they think that's what you want to hear. Like, you probably persuaded them to admit it, so they've just done it to make you happy. Like, their entire lives is dedicated to making you happy. They don't even know what demonically possessed means. They're not old enough to understand this.
You need to go pick up our children from the police station. This is your chance to redeem yourself. I was going to go get those kids. I was going to bring them back home.
Now, this is where I can't understand Kevin's logic. Why would you think that they were actually possessed? And why would you think that you would be able to just go to the police station and be like, oh, can I just pick up me possessed kids, please? 2 possessed kids. They're mine. Yeah, can I just have them? I'll put them in the back of me Prius. Don't worry, I'll have them sorted. Like, clearly this is not the situation at hand here, and if they're at the police station, there's clearly a good reason for this. I just really feel unsettled about Kevin. I don't know, please let me know how you feel about him, but it just seems like he takes little to no responsibility in this entire situation, and he kind of plays it off as if he was just kind of there for the, like, don't even want to say there for the ride, but as if he was one of the children, as if he couldn't stand up for himself like they couldn't. Now, in Jodie's house, they did find a lot of other concerning items that would be used to inflict harm, and they did actually find the 2 other children that were still missing at a local neighbour's house, and they ended up being okay. I say okay, as good as they could be. And at this point, the police randomly find Ruby in Jodie's home, and her reaction to getting arrested for the first time is just so cold.
Place your hand behind your back for me. Perfect. Right now, I can put a finger in each of these, okay? You don't have anything on you that I should know about, correct?
any weapons, anything that we found.
She's just completely non-responsive here. Like, she didn't ask how the kids were. She wasn't bothered about how anyone else was. She wasn't even really bothered about herself getting arrested here. She's just so cold and emotionless, and she just feels nothing for anyone that she's hurt in this situation. And to think that this woman at one point in her life was posted by YouTube as being the poster mom that everyone else should be like is just so, like, how crazy is this? It honestly doesn't seem real. So she gets took to the police station, and then Kevin also arrives at the police station, basically thinking he can just take his kids home. And then he is brought in for questioning. He tells them that he hasn't been around for a year, and they basically just let him out and say that he's no longer a suspect because he wasn't around at the time of all of this kicking off, basically. He even tells the police that he's supportive of Ruby's teachings and he just wants his wife and his kids back. It's like, how is this man still hearing what Ruby has done to his own children and he still just wants her back and saying he's supportive of her? The doc then shows the footage of Ruby getting questioned, and this is even more horrifying.
She said nothing, wouldn't give me anything. Do you want to talk to me about where you live or how many kids you have?
I was about to say on a more serious note, but this entire thing has been quite serious. But the fact that somebody like her can have so many kids and treat them the way that she treats them, and some really, really nice people out there don't have the ability to have their own children, is just so sad. Like, this woman, she's just not there. You know what I mean? Like, the lights are on, but no one's home. She's just not conscious of anything, and she's genuinely just completely lost it. This is somebody that is just lost everything that they ever were as a person. Whether you blame it on the followers and the recognition that she got actually turning her crazy, whether you believe it was her religious beliefs, whether you believe it was just an amalgamation of everything, whatever the reason is, it's so interesting and so shocking that somebody can get to this point where she hasn't even asked if her kids are okay. Bearing in mind she built her entire brand on being the person that looked after her kids the best. They then show Jodie, who has also been detained, obviously, and she's a lot more talkative, and she kind of tries to manipulate the police, basically saying, we're on the same side here, I'm a therapist, you're a police officer, we're just trying to figure out what's going on with Ruby. Like, she's trying to kind of not take any responsibility for this. Basically, everyone in this documentary who is an adult is not taking responsibility for anything that's happened. And I don't include Chad and Shari in that. Chad then talks about how he found out about all of this happening. He found out the same time as everyone else when it was put on the news. Basically, he was at his lifeguard job and his boss basically told him to look at the news, and this is where he found out. And he didn't believe this was real. He believed it was a setup. He believed the authorities were out to get Jodie and his mum because they were trying to spread the word of the Lord. Now, I don't even think Chad's stupid for this, because his entire life he's been raised to believe this, so obviously he's going to believe his mom. Like, this person has manipulated his mind into believing his mom is like a higher power. And at this point, Ruby and Jodie have been charged on 6 different offences against children, and this means the police can now go back into their houses to kind of just raid it a little bit more and try and find any more information to build a case. And somehow they find something even more shocking. Ruby actually kept a daily diary of the stuff she was doing to her children. Now, obviously, they have this as hard evidence to bring up in court and bring some sort of justice to this family. They do take you through some of the things that are mentioned in this diary, but honestly, I just don't even think I can show them on YouTube. They are so shocking, and genuinely it made us cry when I was witnessing it. It is so disturbing. Now, after the days progress and Chad finds out even more stuff, he tries to contact his mum, obviously no answer. He tries to contact Jodie, obviously no answer. So then, out of the blue, like after not speaking to him for years, he tries to speak to his dad. Now, already the fact that Chad thought that his dad was third in line shows how much he respected his dad, that his dad didn't actually bother with him at all, really. Now, when he did get in contact with his dad, this is what his dad told him about the situation.
And I told him about the children being under the influence of evil spirits and the things that they were purportedly doing.
Stop blaming the children, you idiots! I just want to shake him. I just want to be like, just stop. Now, it wasn't until Kevin went inside the house and saw the awful conditions that his children were living in that his mind somehow just kind of switched into him realising that he'd been manipulated and brainwashed this entire time. And this is where he basically said the same thing to Chad, that their entire life has been a lie and everything they've learned they need to unlearn because it's not right. Finally! You know, like, finally, like, is this what it took for you to finally realise? Unfortunately, it's too late now. You know, like, these kids already have so much trauma. The fact that it's took you just to see inside the house, the fact the house looks a little bit trashed, is how you've realised. I realise that he's going through his own trauma, but I just don't stand for that. Now, I know Kevin obviously isn't going to care about what other people think about him, and I honestly think that Kevin right now, just observing his behaviour, feels a lot worse about himself than anyone could feel about him. You can see that this has left him broken, and you can see that he doesn't feel like he was there for his family, and that really, really, like, eats at him every single day, and so it should. I do definitely feel like he was manipulated by both Ruby and Jodie, and his faith was used as like a mechanism to keep him under control. And obviously I do feel sympathy for him for that, but let me know what you think about him, because I feel like he is one of the more, you know where you stand with Ruby and Jodie, and you know where you stand with the kids, but you don't know where you stand with him. And I think that's what the documentary's getting at. It makes you make your own decision up about Kevin. Both Jodie and Ruby then plead guilty to the charges against them, and they will both face up to 30 years in prison, which, you know, that's never going to undo the trauma that these kids have, but at least, like, it just gives the family a tiny bit of justice for this situation. And then the documentary ends with the footage of the family being happy together before they got huge and before all of this horrific things started to happen. And it's honestly just so upsetting.
Do you still love her? Definitely. I've always loved her.
Oh, Kevin, man! Bloody hell! This woman could stab him in the face and he'd be like, you know what, love? Still think you're fit, though. Rory says that she never wants to speak to her ever again, and I believe Chad's kind of in the same boat. He thinks that it's right that she's been jailed, but I feel like he's more open to speaking to her when she possibly gets out if she proves that she's changed. I honestly feel like Kevin would take her back today if she said you want to get back together and she wasn't in prison, honestly, which is just shocking to say after everything she's done. However, it does say that they've filed for divorce, and I'm unsure if they are divorced at this point, but I have been calling them ex-husband because that's kind of the route that they're going down. And that is the end of the documentary. My overall thoughts on the doc are, I think it was really, really well set out. I think it really, for someone like me who knew very little about this situation, it really helps you kind of get a good understanding of everything before it all went downhill. One thing it has really done is it has really brought into question how I feel about these channels in general. Obviously, I know, like I've said earlier, like you can't group all family channels in this same category as this one because this is a huge, unique case. But I hope this documentary makes more people call out children exploitation and people using their kids for views, because at the end of the day, a child should never be an employee. A child should always be a child first, and not even an employee second. They should never have to be the sole reason for their parents' business failing or succeeding. They should just be like a nice bonus if they want to film this on the side. But again, I'm not categorizing all family channels in this one because I know there's some really good ones out there. Let me know what you thought about this video. I know it was a much deeper one, but I do want to throw in videos like this where I really feel passionate about it, because I watched this and I felt like I needed to make a video on it. Hopefully you enjoyed my coverage of it. I really try to be the most respectful whilst also trying to put some light-hearted moments in there just to balance it out a little bit. If you would like to watch me break down another documentary, click this one right here, or if you want a more light-hearted video from me, click this one, Donuts. And as always, thank you so much for taking the time to watch my content. I really do appreciate it. It honestly means the world to us, so I'll see you in the next one.